The crying had not stopped for 6 hours. It echoed through the medical wing of Outpost K-47, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through alloy walls and rattled the nerves of every being inside. Nurses of 3 different species had tried everything: sonic pacifiers, neural calming fields, pheromone misting, even low-level telepathic soothing. Nothing worked. The alien child screamed harder. Dr. Selathai of the Varelian Union stood at the edge of the nursery chamber, her long fingers trembling as she adjusted the light spectrum yet again. "Her stress markers are spiking," she said, her bioluminescent eyes dimming with worry. "If this continues, her neural lattice could fracture." "She's been separated from her clutch for too long," another medic said softly. "Her species bonds early. Very early." "And yet," Selathai replied, her voice strained, "we have no choice." The evacuation left no survivors except her. The child, small, soft-scaled, and barely the length of a human forearm, thrashed in the hovering cradle. Her skin shifted colors rapidly, flashing distress patterns that none of the translators could fully interpret. Tears, thick and pearlescent, streamed down her cheeks as she wailed with a sound that was both infantile and heartbreakingly ancient. Outside the chamber, a human soldier paused mid-step. Sergeant Elias Ward had been walking past the medical wing on his way back from perimeter duty when the sound reached him. He stopped instantly, every muscle tightening. He had heard that cry before. Not that exact sound, not from that species, but something close enough that it struck straight through his chest. A baby crying. He stood there longer than he meant to, helmet tucked under his arm, listening. The other soldiers passed him without comment. Humans were new to this alliance, still considered an oddity, emotion-driven, dangerously empathetic, and unpredictably gentle in ways that didn't always make sense. Elias finally moved closer to the observation window. Inside, he saw the chaos. Medical staff hovering, instruments blinking red, the child arching her tiny body as if trying to escape the world itself. "She's terrified," Elias murmured. Dr. Selathai noticed him and stiffened. "This area is restricted to medical personnel." "I know," he said quickly, raising his hand slightly. "I'm sorry. I just heard her." Selathai studied him for a long moment. Humans unsettled her. They lacked natural shields, no psychic barriers, no emotional dampening. Their feelings were loud, almost invasive. "That child," Selathai said carefully, "is a Zalari. Her species has never had direct contact with humans." Elias nodded. "I won't hurt her." "That is not my concern," Selathai replied. "Your presence may distress her further." Another scream tore through the chamber, sharper than before. The child's color patterns flared violently. Elias swallowed. "Or it might help." Silence fell. "You are a soldier," Selathai said. "Your kind specializes in conflict." He gave a sad smile. "Yeah, but some of us learned other things first." Against her better judgment, and because they were running out of options, Selathai sighed. 5 minutes. You do not touch her unless I permit it." Elias stepped into the chamber slowly, every movement deliberate. He set his helmet down, unclipped his weapon, and knelt beside the hovering cradle so he would not loom over the child. The crying intensified the moment she noticed him. Her eyes, large, multifaceted, and glossy with tears, locked onto his face. Her tiny hands clenched, claws scraping the air as she shrieked louder than ever. The medics tensed. Elias felt his chest tighten. He didn't speak yet. He just stayed where he was, breathing slowly, letting his posture soften. He lowered himself further, until he was almost sitting on the floor. "It's okay," he said quietly. The translator hesitated, then rendered his words into a neutral galactic approximation. The child did not respond. Elias shook his head slightly. No, he murmured. Not like that. He reached up and gently disabled the translator. The medics gasped. You must not, Selathai began. But Elias had already leaned closer, his voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. Not galactic standard. Not any coded language. Human. Hey, he said softly. Hey there, little one. The sound was different. Rounded.
Warm.
Full of subtle vibrations no translation, matrix, could replicate. The child's cry hitched. It didn't stop, but it changed. Elias continued, voice steady, low, and calm. I know it hurts. Everything's loud. Everything's wrong. You're scared. The Zalari child's color pattern slowed, flickering uncertainly. Elias smiled gently, eyes damp. You're not alone. Not right now. He lifted one finger slowly, stopping inches from the cradle, careful not to touch. You don't know me. That's okay. You don't have to. The crying softened into sobs. Around them, the instruments began to stabilize. Selathai stared in disbelief. Elias took a breath, then spoke the word that had lived in his throat since he first heard her cry. The word his mother had whispered to him during thunderstorms. The word he had once spoken to his baby sister after nightmares. It's okay, he said again, but this time he added one more word. Home. The child froze. Her eyes widened, locking onto his mouth as if the sound itself had shape. Her sobbing slowed, then stopped altogether. The colors on her skin shifted, softening into muted pastels the scanners identified as recognition. She made a small sound. Not a cry. A chirr. Elias let out a shaky breath. Yeah, he whispered. That's it. Slowly, so slowly, Selathai extended her instruments. The readings were unmistakable. Stress levels dropping. Neural activity stabilizing. Fear response diminishing. She understands? Selathai whispered. Elias shook his head.
No.
But she feels it. The child reached out, tiny claws curling weakly. Elias looked up at Selathai, eyes asking permission. After a long pause, Selathai nodded once. Elias gently placed his finger into the child's grasp. She held on. The room was silent. For the first time since her rescue, the Zalari child did not cry. News traveled fast through Outpost K-47. By the next cycle, half the station knew about the human soldier who calmed an alien infant no one else could reach. Some called it luck. Others whispered about human psychic anomalies. A few dismissed it as coincidence. Selathai knew better. She had reviewed the recordings a dozen times. The moment the translator was disabled, the tonal shifts, the harmonic resonance in Elias's voice that matched early Zalari bonding frequencies almost perfectly. It should not be possible, she muttered. And yet it was. Elias visited the nursery every day after that. He never stayed long. He never brought anything with him except time. He would sit, talk softly, hum tuneless melodies, sometimes just breathe in rhythm with the child until her colors calmed. The staff noticed something else, too. The child was growing stronger. Her appetite improved. Her sleep cycles normalized. And whenever Elias entered the room, she would chirr and reach for him with unmistakable familiarity. One cycle, Selathai approached him as he prepared to leave. You've altered her developmental trajectory, she said. Elias stiffened. Is that bad? No, Selathai replied softly. It is unprecedented. She hesitated. Zalari form imprint bonds. Deep ones. She has begun to associate your presence with safety. Elias's throat tightened. She lost everyone,